What if I told you that pretty much everything you've been taught about money is not just a little off, but dangerously wrong? Today, we're diving deep into the world of Robert Kiyosaki, the guy behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we're going to deconstruct his philosophy, which basically argues that saving money is for losers and your house is definitely not an asset. Okay, let's just start with this bombshell of a quote, because this is really the key to the whole thing. He's not just nibbling around the edges here. He's taking a sledgehammer to the entire foundation of what our parents and grandparents told us to do. Go to school, get a good job, save money. He says that's all completely obsolete. Right. So that's the big question, isn't it? If the map that we've all been given actually leads off a cliff, well, where do we get a new one? This is the starting point for his entire philosophy, and it forces you to think completely differently about money. So let's really dig into the why. Why does he call this advice not just a little outdated, but actively dangerous? Well, it all boils down to a single crucial moment in financial history. I mean, this looks pretty familiar, right? This is the poor dad formula. It's the safe, secure path that most of us were taught. But Kiyosaki's core argument is that the rulebook for money was totally rewritten, and this path that used to be safe has now become a trap. And here it is, the pivot point, 1971. Before this, the US dollar was actually backed by real physical gold. But then, President Nixon severed that tie. And just like that, money wasn't tied to a real asset anymore. It basically became debt, and that meant that governments could print it endlessly. Which, from Kiyosaki's perspective, is a disaster for anyone who saves money, because inflation just eats it away. The old rules stopped working overnight. Okay, so because the very nature of money changed, it created two totally different paths you could take. And according to Kiyosaki, the path you end up on has absolutely nothing to do with your salary. It's all about your mindset. And this just lays it all out so perfectly. On one side, you have the mindset that's searching for security. It's all about that steady paycheck, that deep fear of losing your job, and blaming the economy when things go south. But then you have the other side, which is all about freedom. It's not about needing a paycheck, it's about seeing failure as just a learning opportunity, and it's about controlling your own economy, no matter what's happening out there. You know, this is how his rich dad really hammered this lesson home. He explained that a paycheck isn't just money, it's a psychological trap. It locks you into an employee's mindset. So he refused to pay young Robert. Think about that for a second. He forced him to stop thinking about how to earn money and start thinking about how to create it. So this brings us straight to one of his most famous and, yeah, most controversial ideas. It's a direct attack on probably the #1 piece of financial advice that everyone gets. The logic here is really simple, and it goes right back to that 1971 decision. When governments can print money out of thin air, two things are basically guaranteed: inflation and taxes. Inflation makes your savings worth less and less every year, and taxes punish you for working hard for your income. In this game, the person who just saves their money is pretty much designed to lose. So, if saving is a losing game, then what's the winning strategy? Well, it's doing the exact opposite of what you've been told your whole life. In a world where money is basically debt, Kiyosaki says the winners are the ones who learn how to use debt, not run from it. And hey, this isn't just theory for him. He talks about refinancing $300 million of his own debt. He cut his interest rate from 5% down to 2.5%. By doing that, his cost of borrowing money was literally cut in half, and his cash flow exploded. This is what he means. Debt and taxes, the very things that crush most people, are the tools the rich use to get even richer. So, if you're going to use debt, what do you use it for? This brings us to the absolute core of the rich dad philosophy. If you get this one lesson, you pretty much get the whole playbook. He just cuts through all the complicated financial jargon. It's this simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket, period. That's it. It's not about what your banker calls it, it's about which direction the cash is flowing. And of course, the opposite is just as simple. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. That's the entire filter he uses to look at every single financial decision. So when you see it this way, the whole game of building wealth becomes incredibly simple. Your entire focus should be on one thing: acquiring assets that generate cash flow while getting rid of the liabilities that just drain your money away. And this is where he drops the biggest bombshell of all. You know that house you were told is your greatest asset, the cornerstone of your financial life? Well, using this definition, If it's taking money out of your pocket every single month for the mortgage, taxes, and repairs, it's not an asset. It's your biggest liability. Now, this entire philosophy even changes how you should think about your job. I mean, if the main goal isn't just to earn a bigger and bigger paycheck, then what's the point of working? Kiyosaki's answer is that you should work to learn, not just to earn. He says your job is basically a training ground for these 4 critical skills. He really believes that most people are just one skill away from becoming truly wealthy. And more often than not, that missing skill is sales and marketing. And he's a perfect example of his own advice. He famously told a journalist who was criticizing his writing that he wasn't a best writing author, he was a best-selling author. His point was brilliant. The ability to sell an idea is often way more valuable than the idea itself. But even if you've got the mindset right and you've learned the skills, there is one final test. It's that leap into entrepreneurship. And Kiyosaki says this test has very little to do with your business plan. It has everything to do with your character. Can you imagine? This is what a colleague told him on his last day as an employee. And that voice, that's the voice of fear that keeps so many of us chained to a job we hate, right? It's that idea that if you fail, you can just run back to the safety of a paycheck. But his response shows the huge mental shift. He didn't argue. He agreed with him. He said, I am going to fail, and I am never coming back. He accepted that failure was a guaranteed part of the process. And by saying he was never coming back, he essentially burned the bridges behind him. There was no safety net to run back. And that really is the final test in this whole playbook. It isn't really about business. It's a test of your character. It's about what happens when the safety net is gone, the paycheck is gone, and you have nothing left. Who do you become then? Do you shrink and cheat? Or do you step up and become a smarter, stronger person? That's the real question at the heart of it all.